All right, we're back for part 2 of the podcast, Bringing On with Chad Brock. And on the first part, we talked about music, talked about wrestling, we talked about, a lot of things. But now we want to talk about the paranormal, because I know, Chad, that you're interested in the subject. Something that, is it something you've been involved with, or is it something that just you've been watching some shows, interested in? When did you start getting interested in the paranormal,
Well, I believe years and years ago, I've always thought about it, because I have heard so many stories, and so whenever Ghost Adventures came on, my son and I used to sit up and watch it, and he was, I don't know how old he was the first time he watched it, but he was intrigued with me, and so it's one of the things that we do together, and I truly. There's so many places out there, and I don't understand that how people can think and not believe that there is some sort of weirdness going on. Whether it's everybody, and it's not because it's a Christian thing or a non-Christian thing or the devil thing. It's not anything like that. I truly believe that there are spirits out there that are still here. Whether they're residual or whether they're not residual, they're intelligent, and I truly believe that if something happens really bad to somebody, or maybe even good to somebody, that they can stick around and want to be a part, and then when it's really time for them to go, they go. I think there's bad spirits. I think there's good spirits, and there's just no possible way they can't be. And I think the people who don't believe in it, you know what, they need to be kind of the skeptics need to go inside and in places and actually kind of feel it, because I have I can feel it. The hair on my arms stand up and stuff like that, and it's kind of strange because that's been going on for years with me. Where I've been in situations where I can feel something. It happened to me really the first time in Nashville when we shot a video at this like Civil War type mansion in Nashville, and I had heard that there were some ghost stories going on, and I'm not scared of them because it's like I know they're not going to hurt me, and there was a really cool mansion, and I don't remember what video we shot there, but there was supposedly a couple different girls in there, and they had been there for years and years, and I've heard stories about them. And so I called them out, and I'm telling you that I felt something a couple different times that were cold, and I felt my arm hair stand up. And so that was probably 15 years ago, or maybe even longer, and I felt it. So I knew that there was something going on. What that really got me, I don't know if you ever seen the Ghost Adventures one where they were out in Loretta Lynn's farm.
Oh my God, that was a great episode. That was one of the better ones. Oh yeah.
And Loretta, bless her heart, she lives amongst them. And there's some. They're talking about the girl that they see. A lot of people see all the time on the balcony. The girl in the white dress that lost her child. And she's actually buried out in that cemetery. And she lost her child. Her child died first, and then I guess they said she died of a broken heart. But there was too many things going on. Too many people have had some sort of a weird experience where they're out in her, because that is a very hotbed. There was a Civil War battle fought on that land, and I'm really interested in going to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, because how many men lost their lives at that one battle?
That's incredible. To me, Gettysburg has been a game changer, because when I went there about 4 years ago, the first time, it changed my whole perspective. I remember, it was a paranormal convention. There was I think about 3,000 people, but it was in mid-April, and it's still windy and it's pretty cold because you're high up in the valley over there. So every morning I would go and drive through the battlefield, and I would, just stop at every monument and everywhere just to do ghost box sessions and talk or just pay my respect. And one night we're coming back from the restaurant, and we just drove through the battlefield. There's 4 of us, and I just say, stop the car. I got out of the car, no idea why. I just started crying and put my hands in the dirt, and I started crying, and I felt, I swear to God, I felt surrounded. I felt like there was thousands of soldiers surrounding me and, asking me for help, or I still can't comprehend it to this day. And I went back about a month ago to Gettysburg, and I had the same feeling. I was overwhelmed by emotion. I started crying out of nowhere. We were walking through the battlefield, and all of a sudden, I got that burst of emotion, and I'm like, my God, I'm not. There's so much stuff to talk about paranormal, but some people believe, in past life or whatever. Maybe in the past life I was a Civil War soldier. I don't know, but I just have a connection to Gettysburg that is hard to explain. And so, in Savannah, Georgia, also we were there, and walking in Fort Pulaski. I don't know if you've been to Fort Pulaski in Georgia.
Yeah.
Oh my God! We went to the underground tunnels, and I had the same emotion. Like I felt like there were slaves surrounding me and asking me for help, and we got clear answers. And when we said, you can come with us outside, and it's the minute we're outside, the ghost box still running, and we heard tanks, like 3 different tanks, thank you. Like, okay, we followed you outside. Like, why were you stuck there? It's hard for me to explain, but there's something about those places, like in Georgia or Gettysburg or, Fort Armistead in Baltimore, battle was fought. Yeah. And, I would love to go to Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Also, there's so many great places to investigate. Wow.
Well, I went to Savannah and stayed at it was a bed and breakfast, but it had been there for years and years, since the 1700s. And one room they had, I can't remember, what was the Fort Conde Inn? No, it wasn't the Fort Conde Inn. I can't remember the name of the place. But we went in there, and they had one room that a lot of people, they wanted to stay in it because it was supposedly where someone had died years and years and years ago, and there was a residual, or maybe even not a residual, but something going on in that room all the time. And I didn't get a chance to get the room, but I wanted it. But I did ask the people who stayed in at the nights, they were stayed a couple nights, and they didn't hear anything. And I don't know if certain people can and certain people can't. I don't know if they're open to it or not. I think you have to be open to it in order to really understand it, to really hear. You can't, when people are doing EVPs and stuff like that, and you hear a voice that you don't hear with your ear, and all of a sudden you go back and you're hearing something on there that's an EVP, and you can't explain it because you know that nobody's there with you. You got you or somebody else, and of course, all of a sudden you hear something come out of the blue. And how can you say this is not happening? And I don't believe in, because growing up the way I grew up, believing as a Christian, as a guy, a God-fearing guy, they talk about, and this goes back, and you can even look at the Bible and talks about the Holy Spirit, and it talks about spirits in the Bible. So I don't think that we're doing anything demonic, and when it talks, because I believe there are demonic spirits out there that are bad. And there's always been demonic spirits. I mean, you can go back for generations, century after century after century, and see this. And it's well documented. So how can we, as human beings now, go, well, this didn't happen, it's a bunch of junk. When we can go back and document it for thousands of years, when they believe that they've seen it, they've heard it, weird stuff has happened, and so when people don't open their minds to certain things like that, I think it's a little bit crazy. I really do.
And you live in Georgia, right? Right at this,
yeah.
So that's an area. There's so many places to investigate in Georgia. That's my favorite part of the country. You know, it was the first time I actually drove through Georgia to go to Florida every year, but just going through Highway 95, you don't see much of it, right? You just see the trees. And but Savannah to me was like, oh my goodness, this is the most beautiful city I've ever seen in my life, and the people there are so nice and so welcoming. You know, Southern hospitality at its best.
Well, you know why it's still the way that it is because whenever Sherman came through and burned Atlanta, he burned a lot of different places during the Civil War. But he went down to Savannah and did not burn Savannah because he took Savannah as a gift, as a Christmas gift for Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. So he kept everything intact in Savannah. That's why you see one of the most beautiful cities in the world right there. And it's filled with, I mean, we went on some tours and stuff like this, and we went walking and driving at night, but there's a lot of cemeteries, and and I love going through old cemeteries because you never know. And I've been like intrigued and with cemeteries for years. I don't know if that's weird or morbid or whatever, but I love going and I love reading headstones. Because you have people, that were buried in 1600, 1700 and stuff like this when this country really started. And then all of a sudden you've got people in the same cemetery who were buried yesterday.
That's so true.
So,
yeah. Like Bonaventure Cemetery, we did this one in Colonial Park, and there's so many stories surrounding some of them, maybe urban legends, but you feel like this is one of the coolest things I ever caught because we're driving through Bonaventure Cemetery and just started a ghost box and just felt, everybody's investigating here and everything. So I started, and the first thing coming out is just go. Like, why would you investigate this place? We're peaceful here. We don't want to be bothered. Yeah. And I respectfully closed it back. And I said, okay, no investigating. We're just taking pictures and walking, and that's it. Respect, because it was a clear, just go. Come on, dude. Don't take anything, make noise here. It's peaceful,
Have you ever investigated any sort of hospitals and stuff like that? You've got to think some of these old rundown hospitals, and I'll tell you, just today, I was reading in Mississippi, some guys were investigating an old hospital in Mississippi and came up on a body.
Oh my goodness.
That went missing yesterday. They found the body. They kind of shut it down, their investigation, of course, but it goes to show you that they found the body, in the abandoned hospital, and we kind of got freaked out. But those old hospitals have so much death, so much destruction, so many people, whether they were a mental hospital or hospitals that cater to people who just got thrown away in society.
Yeah, we did Penner's Asylum, which was I don't if you've heard about Penner's, but they suffered the children. I think it was NBC, and they closed it down, and the owners I think went to jail, and it's overwhelming, when you go there, and that was one of the weirdest things I ever caught because I was going back to my car to get batteries and we're like 3 buildings away from where we were investigating. So as I'm passing in front of a Quaker building where they did the procedures and everything, the lobotomies back in the day, I heard I thought it was animals or whatever, but when I came back again, and it sounded like a child crying, and that really was something I was not expecting. I always said I'm ready for about anything, but a child crying is not something you can really prepare because that's the last thing you want during an investigation is to feel like there's spirits of child still lingering and suffering. And to me, that was oof. I went back inside and I was like, oh my goodness, did I really?
You know as well as I do that if you a lot of times that the children that you hear are sometimes not good entities. They can be masking for something to get your attention and to get your sympathies, and they can be totally something that is pretending to be a child. And those are the kind of things that bother me. That's why it really makes me kind of, I don't like to hear a child or even feel like there's a child around it because sometimes they can be masked as a bad thing.
And they probably know that's something that gets to us easily, so that's, I agree with you that it could be one of the reasons why we get it from time to time. And I was totally, and the interaction we had at Penner's in the basement was incredible. We had some very cool interaction and we had some activity. But I always say that an asylum or old hospital like that or Waverly Hills is way more active than even Eastern State Penitentiary or Alcatraz or former prisons. Because, the people that went there, they did nothing wrong, right? They were just, they had mental problems, and they were just thrown away, and they had to sign waivers that they would never come and see them again once they were at Penner's. Their family could not visit them. That's a sad way to live your life, right?
Oh, it totally was. There was a hospital the same way down when I was going to high school back in the late 70s and early 80s back in Gainesville, Florida, where, you would see the same kind of situations. It was a state-run hospital. They sent kids who could not, you'd see a child sitting in a floor with a football helmet on, and there was nothing that their parents could have done because they were that severe. But there were so many of them, they just sit there. And that really bothered me back then. Something needs to be done because it's almost like one person to every 50 of these kids, and were they getting fed right? Were they getting the medication that they needed? Were they getting the things that they needed? But they finally shut that down because to me it was a very cruel place to put kids. I would have never done that to my child, no matter what. I would have done whatever I could have done to make sure that child was taken care of and at good health. But how can a child who was put in somewhere like that and never to see, never to hold, never to be loved? That, to me, is one of the cruelest things you could ever do to a human being.
I totally agree. Compared to a prison where, Eastern State, funny story, I saw, like a dog, little plate, in one of the cells. So I realized there was a lot of doggy, teddy bears, where you can buy this when you go to the entrance of the jail. So when we went out, my teammate told me, Dom, that was dogs were put here for life. Dogs would kill cats or whatever. So actually dogs were in prison at Eastern State Penitentiary. And I was in one of those cells. I didn't know that, but it would have been something to catch an EVP of a dog barking or something like that.
Oh, I am sure of that. I just, there's too much evidence out there in this world. There's too much evidence that people have found out. There's too many EVPs people have caught. There's too many spirit boxes people have had, and they've documented. There's too many, there's too many sightings of anomalies that floating through the air. There's too many sightings of figures that are unexplainable and that are debunked or not debunked. And there's too many things out there that we have took for granted and said they're not real, but we have evidence now for people not to believe. And it's not. If the funny thing is, I think you have a lot of people here in the States who go, that's not Christian. That's not what the Bible says. Yes, the Bible talks about it. But you have too many people that don't have an open mind about about what people are going through, what people did in the past, and have maybe they were killed prematurely, and they still are here in a way that they're not ready to go yet. And then again, we don't know what happens after death. I mean, we've tried to study it. We've tried to figure it out. There's a new show called Proof. I don't know, have you seen that show on Proof?
Oh, no.
It's a really cool show with Jennifer Beal. And they're really diving into what happens after we die. What happens right exactly after we die. But it's kind of a cool thought process. I mean, do we see a light? Do we go to the light? Do we see our relatives? People say they've seen this. People say they've seen that. But we really don't know, and we won't know until you and I take our last breath.
That's so true. That's so true. And that's why I always try to ask is, are you here on your own free will? Can you come and go as you please? Or are you stuck here? Because when you have a feeling that the spirit is trapped, then it's not the same way of investigating as if you feel it almost as if the spirit is happy to be there because it was his own, he died there, and a happy ending. And most of the time when you're investigating places, it's stories with tragic deaths, or like one of the most haunted places we investigate very often is the Hall Mansion in North Adams, Massachusetts, the most active place I've ever been, but the whole family died within 3 or 4 days in an accident. So the chauffeur killed himself. Mr. Alden died, his wife died, I think only his daughter survived him, and now you can feel the energy. And still actually it's still a very active Masonic temple. They still have masses there every month. So it's you have so many layers of activity there. It's incredible. You can go one time and have positive interaction, and it's the only time where I left feeling that something followed me back home. And I came back, and I was for about 2 weeks, almost, even at work, people could say I was not myself. I was aggressive, and I was very on edge all the time, feeling like somebody's watching you. It's not a good feeling, even at home, nothing happened, but I just had that bad energy surrounding me, and something that I brought back from the mansion. And the next time, all good and everything. And the last time I was there about 3 months ago, we had some crazy stuff happening. I was by myself in the basement, and I heard something running towards me, and I had that feeling of fight or flight. First time ever, I'm honest, first time I ran out. I went back upstairs, and I got the whole team, and I said, guys, come with me. I was, I just had the feeling to be like I was attacked, first time ever, but it can happen.
Have you ever had scratches?
Some of my teammates have, but I never had. I was slapped once behind the head. I was with Joe Chen, Joe from Ghost Hunters International. Yeah. So I was with Joe, his sister, and my teammate MJ were the Haunted Victorian Mansion. It wasn't Ghost Adventures, they're trying to sell it. It's a house in Massachusetts. That episode, at the beginning, they went to see, I think after the Boston bombing. So the guys from Ghost Adventures, so that was that house, and we're investigating the 3rd floor, and I'm filming, going backwards towards the wall, behind me, and I just stopped dead in my tracks, and Joe looks at me, what happened? I said, I just banged my head on the wall, and he said, well, you're middle of the corridor, there's no wall there, and I just turned around, and I don't know, maybe I was slapped, or that was very, very weird. It was the first time it happened to me. First time ever.
Well, I hope that I get a chance to do a investigation. I have never done one. I've really I went into Moon River.
Wow. And
that is supposed to be a hotbed. I went upstairs where they really feel like things are going on. Yes, the hair on my arms and I don't have any hair on my head, so I can't say that it stood up. But the hair on my arms and everything stood up. Did I feel like there was something up there? Yeah. Did they bother me? No. But yeah, I felt something. And I asked to go down there. I asked to go down up top, and I went down at the bottom where they had some really crazy things go on at Moon River at the pub there, and people, people say that the people that work there and stuff like that get it. They have felt it. They have, heard it, and so on and so forth. But this place was just normal as can be, and nobody really noticed anything. But I guess people that asked to go up there sometimes have seen the show, sometimes have not seen the show. And I just felt as though something was up there, but I didn't hear anything. I didn't have any equipment with me. I don't own any equipment like that. I'd like to have some, and I'd like to go on one of these things.
Well, you could join us. That would be awesome.
I'd love to. You just need to call me and let me know, and let's film the thing. Let's have some fun with it.
Oh my goodness, that would be incredible, because at the Moon River, we investigated there, and in the basement, where supposedly a guy named James Stark was shot and killed by a doctor, while because they were playing poker in the same spot. I didn't know the story beforehand, because I love sometimes to go with no expectation. So I said, "Were you killed there?" It said shot by a doctor, but at that time, we had no idea that it happened. So I knew afterwards when I came back and I listened to Ghost Adventures. My goodness. So I was like, that would have been one time that I would have loved to know the whole story of the place before going in, because I wanted to go blind and just find out for myself, because but it goes against, sometimes I love to know the history of the place. Sometimes I love not to know too much. Not to think that, because if you're investigating in my place and I'm telling you, Chad, I always hear Mike. Every sound's going to sound like Mike, because could be your mind playing tricks on you. You're expecting Mike.
Right.
So you might think that, just said Mike. But if you don't know that the voice I hear all the time is Mike, and then you come and tell me we caught 3 mics, 1 on the ghost box and 2 on EVPs, then that's right. Good evidence, because I could, wow, that's exactly what I'm hearing. So I'm not crazy, Because that's what you do private homes. A lot of people, sometimes they think it's not something that, it's easy for them to talk to their friends or family, because some of them could be like, "Oh, you crazy? You're hearing stuff. You think there's ghosts in your house." So when we, as a team, go there and just listen to them, 50% of the work is done, just to listen to them and go like, we believe you now. We're going to try to document whatever we can,
Right. Well, we need to set a time that you and I, let me know where you're going to be at some sort of time, so I can pick one and we go do it. I would love to go to Savannah again. There's one place in Tampa, Florida. There's a hotel that the whole 13th floor is totally that way.
Wow!
And nobody ever stays on the 13th floor. And it's an old hotel on the beach in St. Petersburg that I would like to go and investigate one night. And it is a known place. It is a very well-to-do hotel, and I would love to go down there and see what's going on. I've often wanted to go down there, and nobody's ever really probably been in there. And they've probably been in there and documented, but I don't think anybody has really gone in lately and done anything. And I'd love to be able to spend the night and try it, see what happens. Would I sleep? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
But that would be incredible. Tampa is a beautiful city. Because do you live not far from Savannah? Are you like?
I'm only about 3.5 hours from Savannah here.
Oh, okay.
4 hours at the most. Yeah, I love Savannah. So let's just do that. We can do Savannah. We can do whatever you want to do. Just let me know, and I'll make arrangements to go.
Because I have friends now who live, like near Charleston also. South Charleston is very, very active. We investigated the jail, the old Charleston jail, and we caught some crazy. Yeah. It was the first time ever we caught the window opening. We thought it was the wind, but it was opening and closing on demand. And I can send you the video, but you can judge it by yourself. But I'm like, okay. So I put my hand in in the window frame, and it would stop just before hitting my hand, like opening, closing. Every time I say open it, can you close it back? Open it back, close it back. And at one point, I'm like, probably used to people being scared when you do that, but we're not, because this is what we do. And as I said that, it probably sounded insulting to them, like, they're not scared, so they just shut the window so hard I had to take my hand out not to have it crushed. So I was like, if it's the wind, I'm Thor, I can conjure the wind at will,
Yeah, absolutely.
That was incredible.
I'd love to see the video of that.
That was very cool, because at first I thought it was maybe just the wind, and the funny thing is that the Charleston jail, there was the first lady serial killer ever in 18-something, Lavinia Fisher. She was hanged there, and she promised that she would keep hunting the people there in Charleston.
She was hung. Yes. Yeah,
and we caught on the ghost box. I didn't remember her last name. Well, I did, but I pretended not to. So I'm like, I think your last name was, I know it was Fisher, but I don't remember your first name. And it said Lavinia. So what are the odds that through the ghost box you'll have Lavinia on demand, and then just out of the blue, I see my teammate running towards the prison. So I'm like, hey, we're catching stuff here. But he's like, no. And that's where he saw the window open. So we thought it was the wind for the first 5 minutes. We're thinking, oh, just the wind opening. But it didn't open until I started asking, okay, can you open it back? Can you close it back? And that was pretty cool, because that's the kind of stuff that you always wonder in the back of your head. Was it, coincidence or maybe not? Or is it my mind playing tricks on me? But I think with... sometimes, some of the stuff that you thought with paranormal, you can debunk it after years of doing it. But that one still, I really think we had something there. Like at Bobby Mackey.
Lavinia, she was a mean woman. She was, she was evil.
I know that she did.
And I'd like to go do that myself. But I didn't get as much out of that one during that when I watched it as I would have if I'd have probably been there. I don't think they was quite as active and saw something like what you saw. But there are other places. There is one that I want to go to see and do, and it's a country music place. And that's one of the ones that those boys, when I watched it on television, got really scared. And that was a Bobby Mackey from West Virginia.
Bobby Mackey in Kentucky. Oh, that's That's the coolest place I've ever, by far, because we were there for a full night, and the stuff that we caught there was absolutely amazing, but nothing negative though. Actually Steve was scratched, but we didn't feel anything or hear anything negative, except maybe in the first 40 minutes where I kept being told, get out, and I left. I came back to get my millimeter, and it said, I told you, get out. And we caught, that's the funny thing, because we were there like 2 years ago, and we caught Zach. So I said, what about Zach? And it said, douche. And then I asked, are you mad at him because he came here and provoked you? And it said, yes, clear as day. So because it was back in the beginning where Zach was very, the right word would be aggressive.
Oh, yeah, he was very aggressive.
In the first few years, and he left an imprint at Bobby Mackey, for sure. You still can hear people, posting videos of catching stuff about Nick also and Aaron. And I know that for Aaron, it was a game changer. It made him into a believer. And I'm good friends with Jay Wazley, also now working for them. I don't think Jay has investigated with the crew there, because Zach wants nothing to do with Bobby Mackey anymore. But
I know he doesn't, yeah. They talk about that often. It's brought up in probably half of their shows that they talk about. I mean, it must have been something that they, that really put a profound experience for them, to be honest. I mean, because somebody, was it Aaron who had the demonic presence mess with him and stay with him for a while?
Yeah, yes.
It was a very strange situation. That is the one thing that would bother me, I think, and I think it bothered him, and I think it scared Nick to death. I think, and yes, I believe that Zach has come back, and he is kind of gone back a little bit, and he's kind of drawn it back a little bit, and not provoked, because they really felt as though something was that dangerous in that place.
Yeah, I don't know if you. Yeah, you're right.
And I'm a provoker too. That's the bad thing.
well, that's good. We need people to to spike things up a bit. Yeah,
but I provoke a little bit. I go in and start talking junk.
Exactly,
and that might be kind of bad.
but that's a big difference between provoking and spiking and disrespecting the spirits, because that's something that Zach learned through the years. And now when you look at Ghost Adventures, the style is less. He's still provoking and spiking things, but not in the same way he did before. Because I remember in the documentary they did when he made it look like he was slicing his wrist, in the bathtub, in Virginia City. That was way out of line, and he even admits it today that it was out of line. But I think when you've investigated so many places as they have over a short period of time, like 8 years, it takes a toll on you. I don't think they'll be able to keep on going for another 10 years because it's very, very hard physically and emotionally to do it all the time, like they do. I really tip my hat off to them because last year we helped Jay Wazzy finish his movie Through the Glass at Rolling Hills, and we were there for about a week, and the activity at Rolling Hills is incredible. But to see the work schedule that they have, like working 20 hours a day, it's absolutely amazing. I don't know how they can do it. They're younger than me. I think they're still all in their mid-30s, but it's kind of like country music. The schedule you guys kept, going from town to town, or the wrestling industry, that's crazy.
Wrestling is worse. Wrestling is a schedule. When you're on, but they do give you some time off, or you take months off at a time. You have to keep in shape, but it's still that grueling thing. The country music business is get on a bus and ride, and the worst thing about the whole country music business is riding that bus. People think it's glamour, it's glitz. It's not glamour, it's not glitz. It beats the crap out of you.
Every bump in the road, you feel it, and every
get off, your back hurts, everything hurts. So I get it. I mean, it's a young man's game. It really is. It's a young man's game to me, and the only way that I would have stayed in the country music world if I would have already been a kid, Kenny Chesney or somebody who made all the kind of money and got on a jet and went home every night.
Exactly. Because, but there's not a lot of guys making it to that level now. When you look at the last, I would say 8, 9, 10 years in the country music industry, besides Kenny and people who stayed at the top like Tim McGraw, but new guys coming in besides Florida Georgia Line or Luke Bryan, there's not a lot of guys that made it to superstar status, that back in the day you would with George Strait, Travis Tritt, Alan Jackson, so many guys, Brooks and Dunn, and It's fly by night. You have an album or two, and then if your next single from your third album is not a hit, then they shelve the record and you're done. So there's not a lot of, it's like, okay, on to the next. It's kind of like a Ghost Hunters episode, Good job, brother, on to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you have so many talented artists still there, like Neil McCoy, probably the best live performer that I've ever seen. And I'm sure you agree with me that Neil is incredibly talented and an awesome singer. Have you ever met Neil in person?
Friends,
yeah. How is he in person? I mean, is he as cool as he seems to be? It's
He's the coolest, man. He is, he is one of the coolest guys that I think I've ever been around. He has been a friend. His birthday is one day before mine.
Wow.
And my birthday is July 31st. His birthday is July 30th. And we get in touch with each other on our birthdays and say hello and everything like this. And I talked with Craig Morgan yesterday.
Oh, that's another great singer.
We text back and forth. Craig and I, I'll have to tell you a funny story real quick, before we go. But Craig, I was messing with Craig. He was a cop. Craig used to, when he was in the Army, and he would go back and forth, from the Army and been in and been out. Not been in and been out, but he's been in and stayed in as a reservist, and so Craig was a cop. He had to come into that. He was a cop out where he lives, out in Tennessee and the outskirts of Nashville, and he had his pistol on his side. And I was messing with Craig and just playing with him, because I'm a lot bigger and I was wrestling at the time, so I put him in a hold or something like this. And Craig's the only guy that's ever pulled a gun on me. He did it in fun. He wasn't going to shoot me. He did it like, leave me alone, you big son of a gun, So,
my goodness,
one of those kind of deals.
That's another great singer. That's another guy that I really love. He was so underrated, and then he had a few good hits. And but it's very, very, very hard to keep yourself, in the top 20 guys. It's very, very, very hard. If you don't want to change, if you want to change, but you look like the Gary Allens of this world and guys like that, it's pretty, pretty hard to, unless you're, like you said, Kenny Chesney or Tim McGraw but even those guys, some like Brooks and Dunn, all of a sudden, damn, Alan Jackson is not being played on the radio anymore. Go figure. I just don't understand, I really, really don't understand how you can stop playing a guy like Toby Keith or an Alan Jackson or George Strait. It's impossible to me.
Well, to me, it's like everybody's trying to find the next best thing, the next new thing. And they're more traditional. Well, at least somebody like Alan is, and right now they're not playing traditional, but they're starting to come back and play. So you're going to hear, and Alan, he's been doing it for so long. He's been doing it for so long that he does what he wants to do, puts a record out when he wants to put a record out, and does exactly what he wants. So I think once that you get to that point in your life where you're like, you want to do one record a year, you want to do what you want to do as an artist. So it really doesn't matter what other people think at that point. When you've made all the money you're going to make, and so it just doesn't really matter to these guys anymore.
Yeah,
they're to the point where they're really good in their career. And if they want to do 50 shows a year, they go out and do it. And if they want to do 100 shows a year, they go out and do it. So it just doesn't matter.
To me, it's almost like that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. But I'm telling myself that, don't even look at the top 40 anymore. Listen to the guys you love. No. Listen to the music you love. And the top 40 is made by, radio stations or whatever. But if you don't... If you still, I still listen to Wade Hayes. I don't need the radio to play him to keep listening to Wade Hayes. I still listen to your songs, to your CDs. They're still in my car. I still listen to Yes, to to Ordinary Life. To me that was an extraordinary song. Very meaningful, and that's the kind of songs you don't hear on the radio anymore. Anyway, you don't hear songs like that. Like Ordinary Life. That was a tremendous song, by the way.
Well, thank you. That was the one that took 28 weeks to go up the chart, and it was so long to go up the chart, but it made it, and I was very happy. But it's one of those kind of situations where, okay, we'll play it. All of a sudden, it started getting phone calls. People liked it, and then all of a sudden, you get an ad here and an ad there for a radio station, another ad here, a few more ads here. So it starts building momentum, and finally, people go, you know what? We think this is a hit. Let's really start doing something with it. Let's do something with it. So,
like you said,
work out really good.
It takes a lot of things, a lot of work, to get a song to get to be played, to be a number one hit. It takes more than just a good song. It takes, the old record company behind it, and all the stars have to line up, right?
They do. They really do. Yeah.
And
let me tell you something. My record guy at Warner Brothers, my guy who signed me the record deal, was all into this, making sure the stars were right, and to put a record out. Now, I wasn't into that kind of stuff or anything like that, but he wanted to make sure that the first single went out when it was, it was supposed to go out, and everything was lined up in the atmosphere or whatever it was supposed to happen. And that's the way he did things. That's when he put Evangeline out. That's when he put Ordinary Life out. And it was just one of those kind of weird situations where I wasn't used to it. But hey, if you want to do something like that, that's fine.
That's awesome. Chad, there's only 2 minutes left, but this is the first podcast we do together, but not the last one, because we could have gone on for the whole day.
Yeah.
So many things to talk about, and it was very, very fun to talk to you, and looking forward to do an investigation with you in the future. That would be incredible. Maybe in the fall, or because that's the good thing about Savannah. We could go in January. It's temperature's still pretty cool there. So
well, just let me know and we'll do it. Let's film it.
That would be incredible, and I really, really want to thank you for your time. Very, very thankful. You took the time to do this interview, this podcast this afternoon. That was very, very cool.
Well, Dom, thank you very much for having me, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Thank you very much, brother. Thanks for your time.
All right. Bye.
Bye. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the podcast with Chad Brock, a former country music singer, former wrestler, paranormal maybe upcoming paranormal investigator, and that's incredible. I'm very thankful, for social media, to be able to get in touch with people that I've listened to in my younger years, that I still listen to, either country music singers, wrestlers, or paranormal investigators, or in all the fields that I love in my life. I'm very thankful for that, because, without social media, there's no way, I can't drive up to Chad Brock's house and knock on the door and say, "Hey, sir, can I do a podcast with you?" No, there's social media. Thank for that. Facebook and Twitter. And Twitter is by far my favorite, because it's easy. People see what you tweet, and if you keep it positive and lighthearted, and you don't take yourself too seriously, people will follow you, and you'll have good interaction with people. And that's what matters to me, is to be respectful to people that I interact with on Twitter or Facebook, and keep it positive. And, that way you can have podcasts with people you've been listening to for 20 years. And feel very lucky and thankful for that. I'm thankful, guys, you listen to the podcast, and there's many more to come. Believe that.